Thinking about buying a house in 2025? Whether you're ready to jump in the water now or just thinking about doing it sometime later, there are three crucial steps that can make or break your real estate journey. Spoiler alert, it's not just about scrolling Zillow. Stick around and I'll teach you how to tackle your finances, prep your wish list, and get expert guidance to make your dream home become a reality. Let's get started. I'm Brian Quinlan, a realtor in Indianapolis, and I specialize in helping homebuyers get into the house of their dreams. As a former teacher, this is kind of my wheelhouse, helping people learn the process and get to where they want to be in the end. Do me a favor, hit that subscribe button, give me a thumbs up, and drop me a comment, especially if you have any questions or suggestions that we can share or that I can answer. Many people are thinking about buying a house in 2025. Now, that could be someone who's ready to buy here in the next couple of weeks or short months, or maybe the dream is that sometime by the end of the year, you want to be out of the rental game and into a home of your own. It's never too early to get started. Let's just start there. Yes, it is a process. Looking at homes on Zillow, realtor.com, whatever, yeah, that's fine. But there are much more crucial steps involved in the process so that once you start actually looking at those homes on Zillow for real, you know whether or not that's something that you can work with. So the first step in the process that I think is super important is meeting with a lender. Now, if you're going to be a cash buyer, well, this is a completely different conversation. But most people, when they go and buy a house, they're getting a loan for it, especially if you're a first-time home buyer. So meeting with a lender is a crucial step, and you can't do that too early. Here's what the lender is going to do for you. Number one, they're going to check your credit report because, of course, they want to see what you may qualify in terms of a loan. A good lender is going to take time to explain things to you. I highly recommend that when you meet with a lender, if you have questions, ask. You never want to get into a financial agreement with someone if you don't understand everything. And a good lender is going to take the time to explain everything that you need explained. They're probably going to check your credit report. And yes, there is a slight ding to your credit score when that happens. Not a huge break though. A lot of people over dramatize that your credit report or your credit score is going to come down because someone keeps checking your credit. Yes, it does, but it's only a minor drop, a couple of points, and it goes back up as long as you don't have your credit report pulled every single month. You want to talk to that lender about a pre-approval. Now again, if you are many months away from buying a house, you're not really going to get a pre-approval right now because those are only good for 45 to 60 days depending on the lender. Once it expires, you kind of have to go through this process again. And if it's going to be several months away, there's really no point in getting a pre-approval now. However, a lender can look at your credit report, can check all of your financial information, and give you an idea of what your pre-approval would be good for if they actually went ahead and did that right now so that you have a pretty good idea. Now, when they check your credit report, they're going to get your credit scores. Many people don't know this, but there are multiple credit scores. You have a credit score for a mortgage, a credit score for buying a car, a credit score for a credit card. All of those have different numbers. So regardless of what they tell you on TV commercials about your credit score, there isn't just one. So it's important to talk to a lender because they're going to look at the credit scores that they need in order to get you a home loan. So with that, you may learn, maybe even as a shock to you, that your credit score is low. Don't be embarrassed. That is super normal. A lender, a good lender, is going to take the time to give you suggestions on how you can improve that. In case you didn't know it, the higher your credit score is, the better loan options you're going to have, the better interest rate you're going to get. So if your credit score is a little bit lower than they would like, maybe it's even too low to qualify for something, a lender is going to give you suggestions on what you can do to repair that. A good lender is going to take time to walk you through what you can do to raise that credit score. There are multiple options and suggestions, and everybody's situation is different, so I'm not going to go into what that might be, But that's why you want to have a conversation with a professional lender, someone who's going to take time to explain this to you. But just because you have a low credit score now, number one, doesn't mean you don't qualify for a house. Number two, doesn't mean you won't qualify for one in the future. And if they give you suggestions on what you can do to improve your credit score, do them. Because eventually you want to get into a house. The sooner you start to repair that or to raise that score, I don't want to say repair because it may not be broken, but improve that score, the quicker you're going to be able to qualify to get into the house. One of the key elements that a lender is looking for is what's called debt to income ratio. It's the ratio of the debt that you have, amount of money that you owe to others, versus the income that you have. The better your debt to income ratio, the better loan that you're going to be approved for. So if you have a lot of debts, I can tell you without even talking to a lender, start to pay those down. They don't have to be zero. They just need to be lower. So let's pretend that you have a credit card that has a $10,000 limit on it. Well, if you have more than $5,000 owed on that credit card, that's not going to look very good to the credit bureau, and it's not going to look really good to the lender. They want that to be somewhere closer to 30% debt to income ratio. So if you can get that $10,000 down to maybe somewhere around $3,000, you're going to very likely improve your credit score and the possibility of you getting a loan. There's a chance that if you were to call that credit card company and ask them to raise your limit, that's a quick and easy way to potentially raise your credit score and improve your debt to income ratio without actually having to make any payment. However, I still recommend that you pay that lower, but let's say that you owed $5,000 on a $10,000 limit credit card. If they raise your limit to $15,000 just because you ask, well, now you owe $5,000 on a $15,000 credit card, and your debt to income or your debt to limit ratio is significantly better, makes you look like a better option for a loan. So that's just one suggestion. A lender is going to have more than that for you. The second suggestion to help you get ready to buy a house this year is to start saving money. Now, depending on the loan that you may qualify for, there's going to be a down payment requirement. That down payment could be as low as 3 or 3.5%. Oftentimes, you're looking at about 5% and up from there. There's kind of a magic number that people talk about with down payment on a loan. 20% is that magic number. If you're going to be getting a conventional loan, which in my opinion would be the best loan that you could get, many people suggest 20% down payment. Well, that goes into something called PMI, which is private mortgage insurance. You're going to owe some extra money every month on top of your mortgage or rolled into your mortgage that covers the insurance of that mortgage. When you hit the 20% mark, then that comes off of your mortgage payment, thus you're paying less every month. So a lot of people say you should have 20% down. That's not super realistic for a lot of people. You know, if you were going to get let's say a $300,000 house, well, 20% down on a $300,000 house is $60,000. That's a lot of money to have to save up. And honestly, a lot of people don't have that kind of money. You don't have to pay 20%. And to be honest, PMI is not a huge cost to you on a monthly basis. It's a couple $100 maybe, okay, per month. And yes, that's a lot, but when you're paying, a couple $1,000 for a mortgage, having a couple extra $100 on there, hopefully shouldn't be a deal breaker for you. Saving money for a down payment is key. The bigger down payment you can make, the smaller of a loan you're going to have to take on a house. If we have that $300,000 house that you're buying, if you're going to put down, let's say 10% on that house, well, that's going to be $30,000. Your loan is only going to be for $270,000. If you're going to be paying 5% down for the house, well, then you're only putting down $15,000 and now your loan is for $285,000. So the larger down payment you can make on a house, the lower the loan is that you're going to be taking, and ideally that's going to work out better for you in terms of a monthly cost. There are multiple loan options, and some people qualify for them and some people do not. There's a VA loan that can qualify a veteran to buy a house without putting any money down, so 0% down payment. but you have to have been a veteran to qualify for that. There's USDA loans. Now that has to do usually with buying farmland or agricultural property of some sort. Not everybody qualifies for that. FHA loan is a very popular loan outside of a conventional loan. That is a government-backed loan, and it allows someone to purchase a house for as little as 3.5% as a down payment. A lot of first-time home buyers qualify for that. The drawback to the FHA loan is that PMI never goes away on one of those homes. And when I said save money, I mentioned down payment, but don't forget about closing costs, because down payment is the money that you're putting down on the house. Closing costs are paid at the closing table when you sign all the documents to officially purchase the house. Closing costs can be a couple $1,000s. That pays for the title company that you're going to be using to do all of the closing paperwork and all of the research and title work research on the house before you actually get to the purchasing part. There's taxes involved, there's potentially HOA payments involved, there may be realtor fees involved. Closing costs are something on the back end that people tend to forget about, that you need to make sure you have money set aside to include at closing. I'd also recommend that you have maybe a separate, account savings of some sort that you're going to utilize for when you actually do own the house. Yes, there's a large amount of money that's owed at closing, down payment and closing costs together. But once you own the house, well, you're probably going to want to make some adjustments to it. You may want to do some renovations to the house. You may want to paint the house. You may need to add something or take out a wall or, whatever it is you have planned to do. There may be appliances you have to buy. There's almost always new things you want to buy for the house. Window coverings, shower curtains, all of those things cost money, and you're going to want to have a fund set aside that you can utilize to help once you actually own the house and start to maintain it yourself. The third thing that I recommend that you do when you're thinking about buying a house this year is to meet with a realtor. Now, you may want to meet with multiple realtors, and there shouldn't be any realtors out there that charge you money to meet with them to have a consultation about the home buying process. This is something that I try to do with anybody that I talk to who's thinking about buying a house, whether they're going to be first-time home buyers, whether they've bought a house before, but it's been a while and, a refresher is needed to go through the steps involved with buying a house. This is one of the things that I feel I kind of specialize in as a former teacher. I'm going to sit down with those buyers. I'm going to walk them through all of the steps involved with buying a house, from the search to making an offer to negotiating to the inspection process to the appraisal process, closing. All of that is something that I go over with my clients so that they know what they're getting themselves into before they actually get into it. It's probably not going to change from the beginning of the year to the end of the year, but it doesn't mean that you meet with somebody now and maybe, you're not going to start thinking about moving until October and you're like, well, let's have another meeting just to kind of refresh things. Not a bad idea. But this sets the stage for what you're going to get into. It also gives you an idea of how your realtor works. Are they somebody who explains things well? Are they somebody who's going to be available to you when you need them to answer questions or go look at houses? Another thing that realtor is going to do at this meeting, hopefully, is they're going to talk to you about the local market. You're going to give them your wants and needs when it comes to a house search. And if you're early in the process, maybe you don't know that. Maybe you've been compiling a list of things you know you're going to want in a house your entire life. Who knows? But this is the time for you to have a discussion with the realtor and lay out for them what it is you're going to want and need in a house, the location that you're hoping to be in, and ideally by now you have an idea of what you can afford because you've had that pre-approval meeting or the lender conversation with a lender before you go and talk to your realtor. That's a key ingredient, because somebody who's been looking at Zillow and finds all these fantastic houses, they may have no idea of whether or not they can even afford them, which is why that pre-approval from the lender is important, because you don't want to waste your time going to look at houses that you can't afford. You get your hopes up and then those dreams are dashed because you find out, I can't even afford that house. So by now you've had that conversation. You go and you meet with your realtor, you start talking about what type of houses you want, what your price level is, and from there, the realtor should know the local market and talk to you about where might be a good place to look for homes. You may have it set in your mind that you want to live by a certain school district, you want to live on a certain side of the city, you want a certain type of house, basement, no basement, backyard, condo, home with a huge yard, you want it to be fenced in, you want to have a garage. You don't really care if there's a garage. All of those things come into play, and your realtor should know the local market well enough where they can suggest, you probably want to look over here, you probably want to look over here, you might want to consider new construction. All of those things come into play, and a good realtor is going to be able to be honest with you and let you know what's happening in the local market. If you found value in this video, I'd appreciate it if you give me a thumbs up and leave me a comment. Absolutely share this with anybody that you think might be looking for a house here in 2025. I'd be happy to meet with anybody. My contact information is down in the show notes. You can set up a meeting with me and we can help get you started on the road to home ownership in 2025. Thanks for watching.